Okay, here we go. So you need your H pencil, you need your B pencil, you need to make sure that they're sharpened really good. You need your kneaded eraser, which that's the thing that's in the little plastic if you haven't unwrapped it yet. Okay, and then you're gonna need your tortillion. So everything up there on the screen is what you need, all right? And we're going to start with our H pencil first. So I'm gonna move everything out of the way. You're gonna start with your H pencil first. Okay, I'm going. Those of you that get this, understand how to do it, you're more than welcome to work further ahead than me if you'd like and kind of bust them out. If not, every now and again I'll pause for those of you that need to kind of catch up. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're drawing the shape of the eyeball that's kind of enclosed in our eyelids. Okay, so that's kind of like an almond shape. So I'm going to start with the top curve, and you've got kind of like a nice little gradual hill, and I'm doing this with my H pencil. Okay, so you're starting with a nice little gradual hill there. Okay, then instead of just making my other eyelid come right out from there, that's a don't. That's something that a lot of people do where they make a really crisp corner. You actually need to get a rounded tear duct in there. Okay, so I'm going to round that portion out, and then I'm going to go ahead and get that bottom part of that eyelid, and I'm going to bring it up a little faster, so kind of like that. So I kind of angled it up a bit more on this side, a little bit. Now my eyeball's not going to look exactly the same as this eyeball, but I'm going to try and get it pretty close, okay? All right, so the other thing that I want to get in here is I want to kind of section out that tear duct. Okay, so tear duct from the white of the eye. And then I also want to put in my water line. The water line on your eye is where whenever I start watering or we start crying, it's like that bottom line on the bottom eyelid. Sometimes people put eyeliner there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw in so I have like this little strip kind of pulling through. Okay, and I'll go in and kind of fix that up a little later, all right? Okay, next I want to go ahead and get my iris in. Notice when you look at the picture, we can see the roundness of it kind of on the sides and the bottom, but we lose the top. So that's how we're going to draw it, okay? So I'm going to start over here on the left side, and it kind of curves in quite a bit. And then I'm going to bring it all the way down. I'm kind of right in the middle. I'm going to bring it all the way down to where the curve of that starts touching the top of that water line. And then I'm going to bring the iris back up, kind of like that. It's a little flatter on this side, if you notice. It doesn't curve as much if you look at your picture. Okay, so there's the iris. That's the color part of the eye. Then I'm going to go ahead and establish the pupil. That's the black circle right in the middle. And I want to try to make it proportional to the iris. So I'm a little small. Proportional means the size of something based on something else. So if my iris is real big like that, then I want to make sure that my pupil is nice and big and that I have it placed in the right spot. I'm going to kind of bump up the size of it just a little bit. I can always go in and recorrect it out later. Okay. I also want to go ahead and put in this reflection so it'll kind of show that our eyebrow is shiny. Okay, so it's kind of like a rectangle, kind of a little curvy, just a touch. So I've got kind of like a box going on in there. Okay, now I want to go ahead and establish my eyelid crease. So I'm going to come up above the eye that I've got here. And I want to establish that crease. Notice that it goes out past this original line that we drew. So I'm going to go out a little further, kind of like that. Okay, and I've got a little bit of a crease coming down in here. It's dark on my screen, but you guys can see it in on your worksheet. So I've got a little bit of a crease coming through there. Okay. All right. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to stick with my H pencil and I'm going to work some of my value to start with. Okay. So I'm going to work through it, getting just kind of some base value down, and then I'll pick up my B pencil and I will re-emphasize out my values. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start in the sclera of the eye, the white part of the eye. You guys notice that you've got a lot of shadows pulling through in there. So I'm going to start on this left-hand corner. And I'm just going to very lightly, like a 2 or a 3, about a 3. And I'm going to mimic / copy the shading, the values that I see in that eye. Okay, so just real nice and light to start with. Okay, then I've got some pulling through over here. Okay, and then I've got a pretty good shadow pulling through right in there. The length of my eye looks a little long. That's okay. Just to start with, just to get some practice. Okay, so just real lightly, kind of working that value through. Okay, I'm also going to do that for these upper eyelids. So I'm going to start kind of above that eyelid crease. I'm just going to start placing in just some real light base values. How's my speed, guys? Is it okay? Am I going a little too fast? Okay, no answer means I'm good. Okay. Okay, so just working some of that base value with my H pencil first, and then we'll bump it up in a little bit. Okay, so coming around here. Okay, so there's kind of some base value to go around my eye. Now I'm going to work into my iris. Now, if you guys look really, really, really closely at like close-up eyeballs, images, stuff like that, the iris has a ton of texture in there. So instead of just doing some really light base shading like we're doing here, we're going to put some texture in there, and we're going to do it via line work. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start out from the pupil, and you guys can watch for a little bit before you do. So I'm going to go ahead and just start kind of coming out of the pupil, and I'm going to draw some lines that radiate out from there. Okay, some of them are short, some of them are long. But I'm just working those, and the point is I'm making sure that they follow kind of that curvature of the pupil, so it looks like it's spokes radiating out from like a bicycle wheel. Okay, and like I said, I'm going to kind of vary some of the lengths. Some of them are short, some of them are long. Okay, so I've got kind of that base around the pupil. Then I'm going to do this same exact thing, but now I'm going to switch it, and I'm going to go around the edge of my iris. So maybe I can start up here. And so all these lines, you want them to focus on going to the middle. So that's how their direction works, is going right to the middle. Okay, so no matter where they are, they're all the way around. Mm-hmm. So we started in the pupil, and now we're doing it kind of on the outer edge of the iris in. Okay, I know this is kind of tedious, but this helps with your realism. Okay, don't forget that some of them can be short, some of them can be long. You want these lines to be fairly close to each other. Okay, I gotta admit I did a little bit better on this in first hour, but it's still not too bad. Okay? Just keep working through it. Okay. I'm gonna pause for a little bit, let some of you kind of catch up.
If they like touch on the ones that we already
That's okay. They should kind of do that anyway, like overlap a little bit. Okay. I'm gonna make sure that my B pencil's really nice and sharp. So I'm switching over to my B pencil. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start establishing some darker values. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and just start in the pupil area because that is our darkest part that we have on our whole eye. So we've got a number 10 value here right in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and establish that. Okay, you got to be real careful because when you're working in dark, this is where the shapes of your things can get kind of wonky if you go outside the lines you established for yourself. So I kind of did that here, and so I'm just kind of re-correcting, making sure that my pupil's nice and circular, not all wonky. Okay, then I'm going to use my B pencil and I'm going to do that same texture technique that we just did in the iris with the B pencil. So I'm going to start doing that from the pupil outwards, and I can even start my lines coming out from the pupil itself. Okay, so again, you kind of want some shorter lines and some longer. Okay, so I'm coming through and just kind of re-emphasizing that texture. Okay, again, you want it to follow that curvature so that they're all going to the center. Okay, I'm not going into my reflection. That needs to stay blank. And what I'm going to do is the outside of my pupil gets really, really dark. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of start it by kind of emphasizing an outline, and then I'll work my lines from there. Okay, so I just wanted to darken up the edge there a little bit. Kind of want to make sure that I've got it even all the way throughout. And it does kind of get dark up here too. I need to make sure that it follows that curve of my eyelid. Okay, now I'm going to start working that line texture through. Okay, so these lines should kind of start overlapping with those other lines that you established. Some of those lines go all the way to the pupil. Some of them don't. Okay, what I really want to make sure is that I get that outline kind of blended through. So I want to make sure that I really get some of these darker lines really close together when they're up by the outline there. Okay, so I got to be a little more careful around my reflection. If you guys go into your reflection box, that's okay. We can erase out later. Okay, something like that. So can you guys see how you got the texture in there now?
Are we putting an eyebrow? Oh, Gary, that looks good.
We will at the very end.
My
Okay.
eye takes up my whole box.
Okay, you'll have to go outside of it. Okay, all right, now with my B pencil, I'm gonna go in and I really wanna start emphasizing my values, okay? So, for example, like the bottom edge of my water line is real nice and dark, so I'm gonna get that in there. Kind of the top edge of this eyelid is dark, this eyelid crease, so I'm just gonna kind of bounce around and start darkening up the areas that get nice and dark. So this is where you've got your really nice value range, okay? That got real hairy right there. I'm gonna kind of try and smooth that out a little bit, and then I'll work my tortillion in there. Okay, so this bottom edge here is pretty dark. Going up there like that. Got too many things in front of my face with the document camera and the iPad that it's hard for me to get some straight lines. Okay, so I'm going to go up into this eyebrow crease, darken that up, and I'm going to go ahead and start kind of emphasizing out that value that's in there too. Okay, so I'm just kind of working on the value that's on the top part of the eye here. Okay, then I'll come down and start working in some of these areas, kind of darkening up that eyelid, but I don't want it as dark as the top part. Okay, the tear duct down here, that gets pretty dark, so I'm going to go ahead and start shading in some of that with my B pencil. Okay, that water line gets fairly dark, so I'm going to put some shading in there.
It's going really fast.
Okay, I'll get the water line in there and then I'll pause for a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a little bit. How's everybody doing as a whole? Kind of rough? Okay. Okay, I'm waiting. All right, so you're just working on getting some kind of base shades down, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start working on the shading like underneath my eye a little bit, and I'll just try and go slow. So I'm gonna re-emphasize out this crease here. And then just kind of slowly start working my values in through there. It gets pretty dark up in this area. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just trying to copy the values that I see as best as I can. Now it's not exact, and that's okay because we're just practicing. Okay, I'm also gonna start working my value into the white of the eye. It gets pretty darn dark over here in that left-hand corner, so I'm gonna make it so. We even got some shading kind of coming out and around. Be careful not to get it too dark because we are going to use our tortillion. Okay. Okay, something like that. Give you guys kind of a minute to catch up.
Are we gonna have a long time to do this project?
You're gonna have like your normal 2 weeks like you normally have. Yes, it is.
This eye is taking us all hour.
Yeah, when you're first learning, it takes you longer.
And then on a project that we're grading on, it takes even longer.
2 weeks. Okay, now we're gonna start using our tortillion. All right. So now we're gonna start blending out all of our shading, all of our value that we just put in. Okay. So everybody make a switch.
Is it too light?
It's pretty light. Emphasize out, get it darker, but it's looking pretty good. All right, so now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start blending out all my value that I put down. Now remember, your tortillion makes it pretty dark. Okay, so I'm gonna use my tortillion very, very, very lightly. Okay, maybe like a 1 pressure, just really, really light. All right, guys, so all I'm doing here is I'm using my tortillion really, really lightly, and I'm just trying to kind of copy the values that I see in my image there. Okay, I'm going to kind of bounce to the iris here. And I want to work, when I'm working in the iris with my tortillion, I want to use it the same way that I used my pencil. And so I'm going to use it kind of almost in like a line fashion. So coming out from the pupil, want to use that to blend, and then from the outer edge of the iris inwards. Want to especially make sure I'm blending up by where it's touching that eyelid. Okay. Want to stay out of my reflection box. If you go in there, that's okay. I can show you how to fix it. Okay. All right, so now I kind of worked the iris, okay? So you can kind of see that it's solid, but you still see a little bit of that texture pulling through. So now I'm gonna work on some of these shadow areas that are in the whites of my eye. So I'm kind of looking at my tear duct over here, and I'm starting from the top here, and I'm gonna work my way down and around. I'm also using my tortillion kind of in a curved like fashion so that I'm getting the curvature of that eye pulling through. And I'm just being real careful on how I place it, and I'm just using it really lightly. Okay, I'm gonna bounce to my water line. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of solidify that in there nice and dark. Okay, so basically just wherever you put down value, you're gonna work your tortillion in. And like I said, I'm using only like a 1 pressure. I'm just going really nice and light. Okay, I think I overshaded a little bit on the right hand side, and that's okay. I'm going to keep it there for now, and then I'm going to show you how you can use your kneaded eraser to kind of clean stuff up if you overdo it. Okay, I'm going to work on this top eyelid here. Should be a little lighter than the value that's up above it. You're going to miss the demo.
Of what?
This. I'd wait if I were you. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and start working down here at the bottom eyelid. And all I'm doing is just working to get that cleaned up. Okay, here we go.
Do you have tweezers or something small? Because I accidentally pushed on it.
Nope, I don't. If you can find a paper clip and try and push it back up through. Either that or you got to use the side of it. Okay, guys, so now I want to go through and kind of clean up. I've kind of overshaded in some areas. So you get your kneaded eraser out. And then with your kneaded eraser, you're going to form it to where you kind of get it to a point. Okay, so everybody can be doing that with me now. So you want to form it kind of to a point, and then you want to kind of pinch it to where it has like a flat edge to it. So kind of something like that. Pretty small, kind of like a small point with a flat edge. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to take away some of the graphite that I don't need anymore. So like I've got some highlights running through in here, and then I've got a little bit too much shading in here. So now I'm going to go through and kind of lighten some stuff up. So if you see on the eyelid that's above the reflection point, there is a highlight in there. So I'm just going to take this and start just kind of very gently rubbing out some of that graphite, taking that graphite out. I've got some over here in the corner of my eye. Right here and right there. Okay, I've got a little bit of a highlight underneath the eye, kind of on the right hand side over here. So I'm going to pull that out. Okay, then I'm going to work on the white part of my eye itself. I've got a little bit of a highlight pulling through here, so never mind. I'm going to keep working on my creases I got going on out here. Right there, and technically I've got one pulling through right there. If your kneaded eraser starts getting to where it's not really pulling anything up anymore, all you have to do is reform it and get a clean edge. Okay, and that's how you use your kneaded eraser. So now I'm going to start working on the white part of my eye and kind of getting rid of some of this extra value that I got in there. Okay, I think I'm going to do the same over here. Pull a little bit of that value out. Okay. All right, last thing before I do details, I'm going to pick up my B pencil and I'm going to kind of put in some details, like darker details, like this line for the water line. Kind of darkening that up. I'm going to darken up that upper eyelid crease a little bit. Okay, and I've got a couple of wrinkles in the eyelid itself, so I'm going to get those in there. Okay, so right now I'm just kind of darkening up the things that need to be darkened up. Getting a little more value in there. Okay. Oh, we've got a few minutes. We'll be able to finish. Okay. Okay. So what we're going to start next is we're going to start putting in our eyelashes. So what I've done is I got all my value down, got all my texture. I went back in and I added in my highlights. And so now it's time to put the very last minute details. Okay. So where the eyelashes go on that, I'm having to really move around here. Where the eyelashes go on that upper eyelid, it gets pretty dark. So I want to start by going ahead and making it dark up there, so then I don't have to worry about getting my eyelashes so close together that it has to create that dark line itself. Okay. So when you do eyelashes, you're kind of doing a Nike swoosh almost. So you're almost kind of, if this is your eyelid line, you're going to kind of start from the bottom of that and swoosh your way upwards. Okay. And you have it in different, so you guys can kind of practice that a little bit. Nike swooshes. Okay. Off to the side. And the goal here is you've got to follow the direction that they grow in, and you have to give them different lengths, okay? All right, so, oh no. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on the upper eyelid here, and I'm going to start from this line, kind of swoosh it downward first, and then up. Yep, so you're kind of getting Nike swooshes. Okay. And like I said, you want some of those to be longer. You want some of them to be shorter. Now, as you start moving, making your way across the eye, they're going to get shorter and shorter. And then they're also going to straighten out. So pretty much when I am right at the top of the iris, they're going to be just growing straight up. So you're going to just start kind of making straight lines once you get to this point. And they start getting shorter and shorter. Okay? So they're like really heavy curved on the outer right hand. Okay? And then they're kind of straight now up above the iris, and they're shorter. And then as I move over to the left, then they kind of start growing off to the left, and they get really, really short and kind of further between. Okay, something like that. I can go in and really emphasize some out. You know, I can make some really nice and dark. So this is where it's really important to have your pencil sharp. Okay, you guys can actually see in the reflection on the eye that there's a couple of eyelashes that come through in there. Okay, so just like that, we're going to be able to finish this puppy. Okay, the bottom eyelashes, they're a little more random and they're shorter. Okay, so if they're growing out towards, if they're on the right hand side, they kind of point to the right hand side. They get straighter as they go, but some of them on the bottom, they like to crisscross each other. And as a whole, they're a lot shorter than your top. Okay, and they're also kind of further apart. Okay, so when you start moving over to the left-hand side, you get to where you almost can't even see them anymore. Okay, and the bottom eyelids, they kind of like, or bottom eyelashes, they kind of like to cross over each other. Okay, so they're a little more random. Okay, there's that. You guys doing okay speed-wise? Okay, because we're almost out of here and I want to get the eyebrow in and then we're done. Okay, so if you check out this eyebrow, it's going to grow, the hairs grow straight up from this corner and then they start laying down. So I'm going to just try and do this quickly because my timer just went off. Okay, so start them where they start growing straight up. Then as they move, or as you move to the right, they start growing in that direction. So they start laying down to the right. And then they even start to this point, they kind of start growing down and to the right. Okay, if your eyebrow doesn't look exactly the same, that's okay. Okay, we'll kind of finish that eyebrow up tomorrow. You guys go ahead and get your stuff put away. If you didn't turn in your cut space, you need to do that. And then you also need to turn in your color pencil project.